Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of And Action Filmmaking Podcast. I'm Tommy DiNucci. Here, as always, is my co host, Mikey Messier. And we're very excited because you know what, guys? Last week we talked about my new web series, The Florist. We had a blast getting into it, but I don't feel like we quite covered it like I wanted to. So, Mike and I decided, you know what? We're going to run it back and do a rare part two of The Florist. We don't do a lot of part twos, so here it is. We're going to give you a part two. We're going to get into it some more here. But before we get into that, Mike, how the hell are you, brother? What's happening?
Well, I'm pretty good, Tommy. Today will be my last day here in Jacksonville for a few days. I'm going to Fort Myers for the Fort Myers Film Festival, a short film that we actually featured on this show, Many Keys, the Heartbreak Monologue, that I wrote, directed, and co-produced with my buddy Tim Labonte. We'll be playing at the Fort Myers Film Festival on Thursday afternoon, 5:10 p.m. in the Romance Shorts block. So that should be pretty interesting. So I'll be
Wow.
headed down there, buddy. I'll be headed down for the festival. I got a place to stay for like 4 or 5 nights and see what I can see. Fort Myers is a nice town. It's about 5 hours south of where I'm at now.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about Florida. It's such a massive state, you know. Up here in Rhode Island, you drive 5 hours. You left Rhode Island a long time ago.
Yeah,
But you could be driving 5 hours. You're still in the same damn state. Well, good luck
oddly,
with that,
yeah.
Mike.
Thanks.
We're looking forward to that, and yeah, we're excited to get into the florist. Like I said last week, guys, we just didn't get into everything. There's so much to talk about. There's a lot of people that I want to give shout outs to and get into. I thought today we would talk a little bit more about some of the production aspects and some of the things that we did to kind of give it its unique look. But first off, I want to say a big thank you to anybody who went out and went on Patreon, became a free member of my Patreon, and then went and coughed up that $3 to watch The Florist. Thank you very much. I got a lot of calls and a lot of nice messages about the series, and a lot of people are liking it, and this is a good thing. But what I'm hearing, one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I'm hearing is, oh man, that cliffhanger ending. It ended on such a cliffhanger. I want to know what happens now. So we like to hear that. That's good feedback. And it's just it's always you're always a little nervous when you put something out because obviously you've seen it 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, but until that kind of first stranger watches it, you never know what the reaction is going to be.
Yeah, Tommy, you also had some good publicity this week. I think we should mention Dave LaGreca and Tommy Dreamer at Busted Open Radio. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Dave LaGreca on a podcast years ago. He's a really nice guy, and he's always helping to promote pro wrestling related stuff. And one of your co-stars, Tommy Dreamer, is one of his circle of co-hosts, so to speak, like Tommy and Bubba Ray Dudley and Mark Henry. They all kind of help out on that show. And so Tommy Dreamer, with his connection to your project, as far being in it, basically, it was nice that you were going to get on Busted Open to speak with the wrestling fans.
Yeah, that was really cool, Mike. That was my first time doing any kind of Sirius XM show, national syndicated program, and getting it out there. And you always get a little nervous because, again, like on these shows, I mean, I was very fortunate. Tommy's the man. Dave was really cool to talk to. But you never know how much time you're going to have on these shows. So it's always very nerve wracking about, I got to make sure that I get all of the important info out in the time that I have. And these guys were wrestling fans. And you know me, I'm a huge wrestling fan. So, like, anytime you're on a show or you're performing on, I remember like the one time I did theater, it's a lot like this. But even when you're acting in a movie, there's always like the technician that's like, the person who's like behind the controls and like thinking about everything that's happening. And then there's the performer. So like
Right.
the performer's doing their thing, but the technician in my head's like, I remember like the first conversation started, we're just rolling into wrestling. We're talking about wrestling trading cards from like 1982. And I remember, the performer's like, yeah, I love talking about wrestling. This is fun. I can talk about this all day. My head, the technician's like, brother, this is great, but like we got to talk about The Florist and tell everybody that you can get it on Patreon right now for $3 and become a free member and check it out. So it was cool. I thought it was a really nice conversation and a great balance of like, did the wrestling talk to service that kind of wrestling fan base, but
Right.
also they were really cool about giving me my opportunity to get all the important info out about the florist and tell people where they can get it. And again, big shout out to Tommy Dreamer for getting me on the show there, Dave LaGreca, just really terrific people that, like you said, didn't mind helping us spread the word.
Yeah, that type of exposure, Tommy, is invaluable, and it's great that that happened for you. And those are really nice guys, and they do a quality wrestling show. But here we are to talk about the florist, buddy. And where do you want to get started?
Well, one of the things I wanted to get started on is just, some of the nuts and bolts of it. As we talked about last week, this was a totally independent project that was financed by really a small group of just four guys that believed in the project and were willing to, support it to the tune of, a little check that they were each willing to write so that we could make this movie. So we had enough money where, this wasn't a freebie in the sense that, our crew was being paid, our cast was being paid. It wasn't, although people did favors for us, it wasn't what I call a favor movie where like everybody's working for free and we're just kind of doing it to do it because we want to all make this, we're in it to win it. I wanted to make sure that my crew was paid and fed, my cast was paid and fed. And often people forget about, well, that's great shooting the movie, but what about the post-production aspects? Had to make sure that I had money to edit the film, had to make sure that I had money to colorize it, things like that. So we did get a lot of favors on the production end. And one of those favors that I wanted to kind of talk about was uh, there's a gun club up in Foster, Rhode Island that was really cool to us. There's a scene in the show where we're at basically this, kind of shooting range,
Yep.
and it was really great. Locations are big. Getting a location adds so much production value. Not just filming a whole production inside of like an apartment or someone's house. Having those locations, for example, this shooting range up in Foster, Rhode Island that we were able to go to, just gave us a whole new element, a whole different look. And that was actually Glenn Ciano, our director. It was his father who basically hooked us up with that. He's a member of this gun club, and that was one of my favorite parts of the shoot. Fred Sullivan and also obviously the whole crew, but Fred Sullivan, myself, and Mr. Ransom, who he's got the coolest name in the world. The guy who plays Albert, the guy who owns the flower shop.
Yes.
His name is Kenneth Ransom, and he's
In
just
real life.
he's got an awesome name. And it sounds like a rock star from like the 80s or something. But
Yeah.
Kenneth Ransom is playing basically the florist who is he runs the flower shop that my father's character, the character played by Fred Sullivan, who's my father in the show. They're partners. So it was myself, it was Kenneth, it was Fred, and we're at the shooting range. And it was so fun because we were with Glenn Ciano and his dad, and not just his dad, but all of his dad's kind of old timer buddies. And it was almost like a scene out of like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau's Grumpy Old Men in a sense, but in a really fun way. We just had like all these like old timers with their safety parameters, and we had live firearms on set for some of these scenes. So having these kind of really wily trusted veterans showing us how to properly hold the guns and how to do everything the right way and safely. I mean, we're literally at a shooting range, so safety is number one for these guys. And then it was kind of fun. There's a scene in the show where my character shoots a watermelon to basically show like, look, he's ready.
Right.
He's mastered this weapon as far as we could tell. And that was a lot of fun because that was really just Glenn Ciano's dad shooting a 357 Magnum at a watermelon from about 10, 15 feet away. There he is with the gun, and 3, 2, 1, boom, blast this watermelon. The watermelon it literally exploded. We got it in slow motion. And again, I know that's something that's so simple, but there's something that's like really great about doing a practical effect like that, where it's like, well, we want to get a shot of this watermelon exploding. What do we do? Well, and this is where it's fun to be with, Glenn's dad and these old timers are like, well, we'll just shoot the watermelon. What do you mean?
Right.
What do we do? Because in my mind, I'm thinking like, all right, well, we could probably get some kind of a small charge and blow it up like a firework, like an M80 type deal. But these guys were like, no, we'll just shoot it. We're at a shooting range. We're going to shoot the watermelon. So I can't say that no watermelons were harmed in the filming of The Florist, because we definitely blew one up. So that was really fun, getting to do stuff like that. It's also nice for the crew when you get to do things like that because the morale kind of lifts a little bit. Everybody can kind of get around it, and everyone puts their ear protection in, and it's like, ooh, we're gonna watch something fun. It's like being on a field trip when you're in school, like, or you're about to watch an experiment in science class. And I find that things like that kind of get the crew excited and fired up to go do the 3 or 4 page of dialogue scene that's not as exciting.
Well, it's interesting, Tommy, and like you said, like the crew, although they're there on the payroll, they're also human beings, so they like to be entertained as well. So having something to forward to looking, having something forward to look to, looking forward to something.
Having something to look forward to.
Thank you. Yeah, with an exploding watermelon is a good thing. And my personal favorite aspect of that shoot, buddy, which I'm probably in the 1% that noticed, is the Bad Street USA T-shirt that you're so proudly wearing in honor of the fabulous Freebirds from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes, the fabulous Freebirds were definitely represented. I wanted to have one little nod to wrestling of some kind. Like I always like to do that, aside from a wrestler, Tommy Dreamer, being in the show.
Sure.
And I remember, we mentioned her on the last show, but Courtney Gouen did the costumes on this one, and I was like, I'd love to get one of these shirts in, and she hated a couple of the wrestling shirts. She was like, I don't think so. I don't know about that one. And the Bad Street one, it was like, all right, that'll work. That's kind of passable. What I love about that shirt is the fact that like you wouldn't have to be a wrestling fan to know that it's a wrestling shirt. Like it just kind of has a cool graphic to it. So yeah, you always got to put a little Easter egg, Mike. We like to put little Easter eggs in there.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it, and the Freebirds and the Von Erichs. I was just talking to one of the actors from the Iron Claw movie yesterday. So I mean, that was 40 years ago at this point, the 1980s. So it's amazing, Tommy, how things in pop culture, whether it's film, wrestling, music, books, some things just last forever. So that's why we do
Yes.
this crazy stuff.
Yeah, people love to see. We love to see things kind of live on, and with T-shirts, kind of different graphics and logos can live on forever. Yeah, and so let's go back to some of the fun elements of this shoot. This was very much a bloody production. There's a
Yeah.
lot of you could say maybe gore. I never really liked that term gore, but yeah, there's some gory scenes. And Amanda Pepin was kind of the ace in the hole for us when it came to all the practical effects. What you're seeing is all, like I said, it's practical, it's real, it's happening in live time. This isn't CGI, so all the blood is actual, fake blood that's being, cooked up by Amanda. And I got to say, like, just having that kind of attention to detail from her is a big difference. I don't want to give away the scene, but there's we'll call it a Chinese food dinner that goes horribly wrong. And she really just methodically, I want to say almost like an artist would paint with a paintbrush. She sort of like painted this canvas, being the frame, with this synthetic blood that just made it look so eerie and beautiful and stunning. And it kind of gave our very last image in the production in the show a really nice, impactful message, and it kind of like stuck with you. I think with TV shows, I'm still learning a lot. I've really only made feature films, but I think with TV shows and anything episodic, the last like 30 seconds are so important, because that's what's going to get people to come back. And chances are, if you did mess something up early on in the episode, or maybe I shouldn't say mess something up, but if everything wasn't quite executed perfectly in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the show, if you can stick the landing and end it in such a way that people are kind of like, oh wow, now what, you'll be forgiven for some of your sins that might happen earlier in the episode, provided that people are still watching. So I do think we stuck the landing, and I got to give a shout out to Amanda Pepin for really creating that awesome imagery at the end.
Yeah, and going back to your buddies over there at Dave LaGreca's show, Bubble Ray Dudley, the wrestler, always says that about a wrestling show, whether it's WrestleMania or whatever, is that people remember the last 5 minutes. They can be watching a 4-hour wrestling program and sit through all these different preliminary matches, but it's the ending of the main event and how the show goes off the air that determines whether or not they're going to come back for Monday Night Raw the next night. And in your case, it's the ending of this episode would lead people to want to see an episode 2 of The Florist. So that's good to have a nice, I guess you could call it a cliffhanger to kind of, end the first installment.
Yeah, definitely is called a cliffhanger. And yeah, it's kind of it's again, you just want to get people to watch that second episode. It might be a little bit down the road, but you can get to that second. You can get us to that second episode faster by going over to my Patreon, becoming a free member, and then paying that $3 streaming fee to watch The Florist. So if you're listening to this, you're watching this, if you haven't seen The Florist yet, go check it out on Patreon. It's the only place you can get it. It's not on YouTube. It's not going to be playing anywhere else. And it's right there. That's my Patreon page. That's Tom DiNucci. You just type my name into Patreon. It'll come on up. And then you go to my shop. You'll see a little tab you can click for my shop. And there will be The Florist for $3. You can stream it and watch it from your phone, from your computer, tablet. My sister was watching it. She bounced it over to her TV. Was watching it on the TV. And that's another thing, guys. If you're watching this and you did watch The Florist, I beg of you, it would be really helpful to us if you could promote it for us and help us out a little bit. Take a picture of the screen when you're watching it and put it on Instagram and tag me in it, and I'll make sure that I share it on my story. Help us get the word out because, guys, we're doing this on our own. This isn't, one of the things I talked about on Busted Open. This isn't put out by Paramount Pictures. This isn't put out by, NBC. We don't have this massive marketing machine behind us. Everything that we do to get this production in front of people, to get this show out there, it's all word of mouth. I'm sure if you follow me on social media, you've been seeing me promote it a lot. It's a lot of good old fashioned social media posts and getting people behind it. So again, if you saw the show, if you gave it a chance and you watched it, it would be huge if you could just screenshot screenshot an image that you like, post it up on your feed, and if you tag me in it, I will definitely share it up as well. So thanks for doing that, guys. And real quick, let's check on in with Kim Kaling. What's up, Kim? How you doing, Kim? Kim's been working a lot. I saw that Kim just got cast in something, which is really cool. And yep. Ariana, what's up, Ariana? Ariana says the whole episode was great. Looking forward to more. Thank you so much, Ariana. I really appreciate that. And Ariana just got cast in something. You see that, guys? And action people are making shit happen out there. We love to see that. We love to see people taking action in their own entertainment careers. And I think Kim and Ariana are an example of two people that, really go after every opportunity they can. And that's how you do it, man. I mean, it's how you win. You just keep getting out there. Good things will happen. Let's talk about another funny story. So my cat Donnie made an appearance in this one. Donnie is my orange cat. He is, you guys aren't going to believe it when I tell you this, but the little bastard is like fucking 18 or 19 years old now. He's ancient in cat terms. He's like an old wizard. But he's in great shape. He's still bouncing around. He still makes it up and down the stairs. And I love him more than anything in the world, more than life itself. He's my favorite creature on the planet. And I just really wanted to kind of like cement his orange furry ass into this production forever. So there's a scene where my character's kind of like, talking on his little gaming machine there, and things are going good for him for the first time. And I was like, oh man, like maybe when things are going good, he's holding on to Donnie and all is well in the world. So I picked up Donnie and I was holding him there for a little bit, and I'm like, okay, he can be pretty chill with this. And I'm like leaning back and I'm doing the scene. and I'm trying my best, kind of hang in there. And Donnie just starts fucking grabbing onto me. And he's not a vicious cat. Like
Right.
Donnie has literally never struck me in his life. He's not violent, but he was nervous. There was all people around, so he
Mm.
he
Dug
latched.
in. Yeah.
He was dug in. So as I was doing that whole scene, he was dug on in, and the poor guy too. Like this is where I almost felt bad. And when I watch it back, there's a couple moments we cut around it a little bit, but he's looking down, like as if like you know in like the movies when you're like on a ledge and it's like a deadly drop, and the person's like, oh, like you can see him just like preparing, like calculating the distance. Like, okay, I could survive this jump if I went for it right now. And I remember we finished the scene, and the second it's almost like he knew. He was a great he's a very focused actor as a cat,
Yes. Yes.
because he hung in there, and as soon as cut was called, he was like, I'm out. And he just jumped right on down. But he did finish the scene, and I was very proud for his poise.
Yeah, and he's your senior member of your cat team, and I'm kind of surprised that your other cat Larry didn't hop in, because Larry's a little bit more of a ball hog these days. So I'm surprised Larry didn't have professional jealousy towards Donnie.
Oh, there's no question that Larry was very upset that he was not cast in episode 1, and he was probably walking around wondering why, like why not me? Why didn't I get chosen to be in this? And how come Donnie gets to be in it? I had to take him aside and basically say, Larry, listen, bud, it's episode 1. I'm gonna need other cats down the road. Donnie, he's getting a little older. We don't know how long we'll have him in front of the camera. But I can count on you. So I manipulate. Basically, what I'm saying is I manipulated my cat, Larry. But if you really want to see Larry in a movie, there is a movie called Saving Christmas that I did where Larry makes an appearance. So don't feel too bad for Larry. He's performed before. He's had his chances in front of the
Larry
camera.
is Larry is like, Tommy, I can be orange. That's my shout out to the movie Tootsie, if anyone caught that. But yeah, good for you, buddy. It was a good scene, and good cat. He's a big guy too. He's probably 15 or 20 pounds.
Yeah, he's a vicious killer. He loves to hunt, and we'll get him in the florist down the road. So yes, guys, I really appreciate that. Anybody who gets to check out the show, please do me a big solid and make some kind of a post. Let people know what you liked about it. Hey, if you didn't like it, still make a post. Say, hey, I watched the florist, and it was trash, and I want my $3 back, Tommy. I'm coming to get you.
Or you can
But
say that
either way,
I hated this thing so much. I want all my friends to pay $3 so they can join me in hate watching.
yes, yeah. And in fact, we should do like an online hate watch session with me. And everybody can
Right.
just throw their verbal tomatoes and have at it. Some other fun scenes in the florist. This is a fun moment. Michael Zuccola. A lot of
Yeah,
people say his name wrong. He's a really good actor, and I probably said his name wrong for many years. I used to call him Zuccola. His name is
that's what
actually
I used to.
Zuccola. Yeah, his name's
Okay.
Zuccola, like Coca-Cola. It's
Yeah.
Zuccola. So Mike Zuccola is in this, and Mike is really great. He's a great actor. He can play anything. So not trying to typecast Mike, but Mike is really great at playing smarmy, slimy, nasty characters. Guys that you probably just would want to you have to take a shower after talking to them because they're so gross.
Right.
So I got a character that plays the mark that we go after, that we kill, that we try to kill in this episode. It's sort of the first case that my character is on, and he's a really bad guy. He's a drug dealer. He's sex trafficking women. He's doing all kind of fucked up things. Who better to cast than Mike Zuccola? I bring him on in to play this slimy character, and we're shooting the scene, and I'm there with Glenn, and Glenn's directing it. We're looking at the room, and we're like, man, it'd be cool to get some candles in this room. And we're not in a studio, we're in my house, but I happen to really love candles, and I have quite the candle collection, and I didn't realize what a candle collection I had until we shot this scene. And there I am with Gina and Gianna. They're working in the art department. And I'm like, all right, listen, I got a lot of candles in this house. We got to round them all up. Let's find them. And we just start going around my house. And I'm a little weird in my house. Like, I wish there was more rhyme or reason to my life, but there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to my life. Like, my movie life is so structured and organized and everything is in its right place. My life shit is everywhere. So it's like I don't have like the candle closet or anything. Like, I don't have like specific places where things are. I'm a crazy person. I'll just, oh, we're done with this. We'll put this over here. Here's a cabinet. Put it here. There's a drawer. I'm a madman. So candles could be anywhere in my house. So I remember we just like scoured the cabinets and closets, and we probably rounded up. I'm not kidding. This is not a fabrication. Probably like 15 different Yankee candles. I just had all these fucking Yankee candle jars everywhere. And we were able to put them in all these crazy places in the room. And it had such a nice effect on camera. And it added to like the creepiness of this character. So that was kind of just a fun story, very last minute thing. We're just kind of hanging around. And I guess it's, the learning lesson there is sometimes at the last minute, it's okay to embrace a creative impulse that you might have, provided you have the shit that you need to make it happen around you. Take that extra minute to see like, oh, wait a minute. You know what? I do have a creepy candle collection in my house. I will utilize it for the scene.
Yeah, that's great, Tommy. And it's good to have, and like your house does have some history to it. Your family's been there for, several years. So there is some buildup of stuff, let's say, you know what I mean? So it's good to have things in the tool shed,
Yeah.
even if you have to dig around the tool shed for 5 or 6 hours to find what you're needing. It's good to have stuff.
Yeah, my house can be much like an archaeological dig in the sense that there's like layers where you could be
Right.
like, oh, look, I think this looks like mid 2000s. Oh, this is from the late 90s over here. Oh, we're getting into the permafrost of the structure. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. All right. So the one thing about the candles that was kind of funny though is, all right, so you've got like chocolate frosted cake, apple crumb cake, Halloween fun, Christmas delight, ginger snaps. It was the weirdest fucking aroma I ever remember. It wasn't a bad smell, but it
Right.
was this like, it was overpowering. I mean, I'm talking like 15 different Yankee candles, all cooking with all different flavors. It was almost like, when you're like a little kid and you go into Burger King or McDonald's and you see all the fountain sodas and you just like, and you just get like a little bit of each soda.
Yeah,
You think
nuclear
you're gonna,
bomb or
you
we used
think
to
you're
call
gonna
that.
make some magical flavor when really
Right.
it's just gonna taste like shitty, murky seltzer water.
Yeah.
That's what it was like, only with candles. What were you saying? You called it a bomb? You'd make a
Yeah,
bomb?
I think me and my youth used to call that like a nuclear bomb or something. It was always some hyperbolic name, like a tornado or a bomb or a missile or whatever. When you just mixed all the drinks together, uh, when you're describing the candle mixing aroma, buddy, that's kind of like getting an everything bagel. When it's like you got your
Yeah.
onion, you got your sesame seed, you got your garlic, and to me, I don't like that because it's too many flavors in one bagel at one time. I just need one flavor of bagel.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that they got some gall to even call it an everything bagel. Like, wait, come on.
Right.
Everything. Get out of here.
There's no
Let's check
tuna
in with
fish in
some
it.
of they're probably, you put tuna fish on a bagel. It's actually not that bad, probably. A little tuna salad. Let's see what's up with everybody. All right. Kim says, we'll watch this week. Thank you so much, Kim. You support everything we do. That means so much. And when you do, post that up. Give us a little shout out. I'll make sure I share it. Thanks. I ended up with 3 bookings, 2 supporting roles, and 1 lead.
Oh,
Let's give an and action round of applause for Kim. That is fantastic.
That's
We're
good.
so proud of you, and break some legs on that. She says, and congratulations, Ariana. Ariana says, Donnie is a professional. That is a fact. Listen, there's a lot you can say about Donnie. You can say
Right.
that he, kind of sounds funny when he breathes because he's old. You can say that he has crusty eyes, which I have to clean up occasionally because they get very crusted and I have to decrust them like this. But you can't say that he's not a professional. But he does have crusty eyes. Kim says, poor Larry. No, don't worry. Larry will get over it. Listen, I talked to his agent. I straightened everything out. Larry is already booked for at least You get a minimum guarantee for 2 episodes in the future episodes of The Florist. Ariana says, thank you, Kim. We got kissing emojis. We're sharing a lot of love here on End Action. I love Larry. I got to spend time with him when we filmed the music video. Such a cool cat. Larry is a nice guy. And for an aggressive animal outside, like if I was a squirrel, I'd be terrified of him. If I was a rabbit, I would run the other way. With humans, he's very nice. He never scratches anyone. Like when you buy a cola at the zoo. A zoo cola.
I
Wow.
see. Interesting.
Hey, how you doing? All right.
I like that.
Okay. Paul, what's up, brother? What's up, guys? Happy Tuesday to you too, Paul. I hope things are going well in your neck of the woods. We're over here talking about The Florist, episode 2. Charlie Short Films. What's up, Charlie? How you doing, brother? Charlie, you would appreciate The Florist because, well, you know, you're Charlie Short Films, and The Florist kind of felt like making a short film. You know, we wanted to have the same production value that one of my major motion pictures has in it, but we only had about 20, 25 minutes worth of cash to produce. So you might want to check that out. Check out The Florist. I would actually love to hear what you think of it as a short film guy. So yeah, guys, again, really appreciate everybody who gave it a watch. Let's talk about some other things. You know, Fred Sullivan, we mentioned him last week. We'll mention him again. Gotta just give another shout out to him and thank him for really putting so much effort into this. You know, here's the reality, guys. Yes, I act sometimes, but I have such a hard time saying I'm an actor. It's this weird thing. I almost never say it. I kind of always have been like, well, I like doing it, and you know, it's something. It's almost like a hobby, and if I can do it, I'll do it. I make jokes. I say things like, I'm not an actor. I'm an entertainer, and I kind of always just like put it away. But Fred Sullivan is very much a real deal actor's actor. He's been doing it since he was a kid, but professionally his whole adult life. So I was a little intimidated, although Fred and I are super close. Like just working with him, I was like, man, I don't want to suck. What if I suck in front of Fred? Like working with Fred, I wanted to have that chemistry, and I didn't want to make him look bad because a lot of people who act, you'll realize it's kind of like playing. It's like tag, you're it. It's a back and forth. You know, it's like it's hard to be good in a scene if your acting partner is lousy. It's kind of like tough to kind of get that emotion out of them and play that back and forth. And a good actor with a shitty actor, the good actor is always going to be fine. They're going to do their thing. But it's hard for them to have a great scene if they just have like a performance to go up against. So I was nervous, and I want to thank Fred for taking so much time with me. Fred came over my house several times and just rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And we read the text and we read the dialogue and we kind of worked it and worked it and worked it. Glenn Ciano was at a lot of these sessions. So Glenn could help kind of put his 2 cents into how, you know, what he thought was working well and what wasn't working. And we were also able to kind of, I want to say rewrite the script. That's a little extreme, but we were able to tweak certain lines to, I say this all the time, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. I've been getting a lot better at it. But guys, if you're a writer, you got to say that shit out loud because you have no idea how many times you'll read something and it'll, even when you're proofreading, it'll sound great in your head. But if you're not actually sitting there table reading it with another person and hearing how the volley of dialogue works, you don't really get it. So, you know, it wasn't until Fred came over the house weeks before production and started workshopping these scenes when we realized, like, hey, you know what? That line could use a right here, right there, and tweak this and tweak that. And Glenn, Fred, and I kind of just made a final pass of the script on one really productive kind of session towards the end. And we kind of honed it in. So big shout out to Fred. He did a lot of great things. And the feedback that I'm getting on this from a lot of the people that have watched is just, they're like, who's the guy who plays your dad? He's terrific. And I'm like, yeah, it's Fred Sullivan, man. Like, I'm kind of like, what? Like, you didn't think Fred would crush it? You know?
Well, I'm sure there's people that are seeing The Florist, Tommy, that maybe haven't seen Fred and your other stuff, like Mr.
Oh, yeah,
Birthday
no, of course.
stuff like that. So
I'm just being fresh, buddy.
Well, it's interesting because as the you know, content creator, as it were, you know, every person thinks that you see the world through your perspective, and you kind of know everything you've done because you're you. But for a new audience, they might be seeing you for the first time, or Fred Sullivan for the first time, or even Tommy Dreamer or Scout Lyons for the first time. So it's interesting that the same entertainer can kind of be a discovery for a new audience member.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people are going to discover Fred in this and hopefully go back and see a lot of the other movies he's been in and things that he's done. And if you're in the area, he's often on stage doing something. It seems like every couple months he's doing some form of a production of some kind. So check him out. Look up Fred Sullivan on your social media. He's on Instagram. He's on Facebook. Give him a follow. He's a fun follow. Always posting some fun stuff. He's also a cat lover. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about Glenn Ciano. Glenn and I have just been, we talked last week just how long we've known each other. Like I said, when I first met Glenn, his daughter was literally a baby in his arms, and now she's going off to college. So we've been friends for a long, long time. And although we've been friends for a long time and we've worked together many times, Glenn was the director of photography on Johnny and Clyde. Glenn has directed me several times in various productions that he's directed. We haven't really produced something together where it's like, okay, just me and Glenn with this idea. We're going to go out and raise some money. We're going to manage the production. We're going to hire all the people. And we're going to make this happen. And then we're going to market the movie ourselves. So to be able to do this with Glenn and really for the first time, like I said, we've known each other for almost 20 years now. But for the first time in our careers and in our friendship, we were able to kind of take a project from really just like a grain of salt of an idea, or I should say sand. I think sand's it better. If you're going with grains,
Yeah,
it should be a
sand.
grain of sand. Fuck
Well,
salt.
I like seed myself. I like a seed of an idea, but sure.
Ooh,
Sand,
I don't like seed. Seed reminds me of like the seed of some. It's like I get that it's like impregnating. When I hear seed, I think impregnation. Is that a word?
Okay.
Impregnation? It must be.
It is
right?
now.
Yeah. Anyway, no seeds, just sand. We're not doing a grain of salt. It's a grain of sand. When Glenn and I first came up with this idea, it's really cool just to see it kind of go from that little tidbit of an idea, like, it'd be cool if you found out that your dad was a hitman. That's literally like where this show came up from. Just like a lot of great ideas just come from like conversations and questions and almost like what ifs. So it's kind of like, well, what if you found out your dad killed people at work instead of made beautiful floral arrangements, or maybe he does both and he just does that on the side. So these kind of conversations make for kind of the early kind of formulation of a story, and it's really just nice to share that with Glenn. And I hope that we get to do more and more of these because the Florist was a great experience, and it definitely took a lot out of us, but it's very fulfilling to see that. And I'm having fun marketing it and putting it out there. So, and guys, here's the deal. I'm opening this up to And Action because listen, I ain't gonna bullshit you guys. And Action does not have a massive audience, but it does have a consistent audience, and we appreciate the people that tune into this every single week. Kind of think of you as like my friends now. When I see you on the feed here, I'm like, it's good to see you guys every week, every Tuesday. So I'm opening it up to you guys. I need help. Like if you have any ideas on how I can better market the Florist and better get this idea out to people, because again, it's not a layup of a pitch. When you tell somebody like, hey, go watch this on Patreon, a lot of people ages 20, 25 and up look at you like you got six heads because they've never heard of Patreon. I have noticed, and Glenn has noticed too, as he's been marketing, as Glenn has been marketing this to younger people and pitching younger people in their teens and 20s, the Patreon thing's an easy no-brainer. They're like, oh, cool, Patreon. They know what it is. But the 30 and up crowd, they don't seem as up to speed with it. I was one of those people. I kind of just found out what Patreon was just a couple of years ago, right around pandemic is when I kind of got into it. So I'm opening this up to And Action people, my friends, my film family. If you have any ideas on how to better promote this, better market this, if you're aware of any people that do reviews or write periodicals of any kind in the entertainment space, if you're aware of anyone connected to any kind of pro wrestling edge, a pro wrestling connection, since we have Tommy Dreamer in this, I would love to hear your ideas. You can feel free to post them in the comments down below, or if you want, follow me on Instagram at Tom DiNucci and shoot me a DM, and we'll get the conversation started, because I'm always looking to learn, and I know everybody has some great ideas out there that could probably help me out a lot. So help old Tommy out here. Give me some ideas.
Yeah, Tommy, I mean, what you said is true. I mean, it's things are so much easier to self-distribute these days, but the downside of that is that there's so much competition and so much content readily available for everybody that, it's more empowering, yet at the same time, it's kind of more competitive. There's more opportunities, but there's more people doing stuff. So to stand out, like you said, reaching out to the End Action family here to get any ideas for podcasts, you can go. I think podcasts are a good way too, because if nothing else, you kind of practice your speaking abilities. And like with Dave and the guys that busted open this week, knowing that you're going to be speaking to probably 1 million people
Oh,
listen to that show at least. So, it's good to
yeah,
get
Mike,
that.
I not to cut you off, brother, but I say it all the time. Like, one of my favorite parts about And Action and getting to come on here every Tuesday at 11 o'clock to talk to everybody is just getting to practice like this, what we're doing. We're talking with an audience and kind of chatting. And some nights, some weeks you stumble a little bit, and occasionally I don't watch back every episode of And Action, but a lot of times I'll have to watch it back because I'm the one who's cutting together these promos and advertising for the show. So when I do watch it back, I'll often see little things, and I try to critique your performance a little bit. Like, how can I make this better? Like, one of the things I'm working on is I used to swear a little bit too much. I don't know if you've noticed. I've let a couple F-bombs fly this week, but I have been trying to narrow down the profanity a little bit, because the reality is that, I mean, there are other words out there that you can say. You don't have to swear all the time. And sometimes when you don't swear as much, when you do swear, it fucking matters. Right?
Well, yeah, the emphasis, yeah, make it count, and with some of my Mike's Instant Movie reviews, I find myself swearing up a storm. And the reality, buddy, is that with YouTube, at least the analytics, the machine, right? It censors out not censors, but it detects the swear words, and it will give you less of a feed to new audience
Ah,
members. So that's a
there you
real
go.
thing. So for me, I always know that going into my review, but I inevitably start swearing up a
You
storm
lose it.
anyway. And the other thing is, like, if you can go the first 10 minutes without a swear word, then it's actually pretty good. Like, so if you can at
Hmm.
least go 10 minutes without swearing, at the 11-minute mark, let it fly, basically. So it's an interesting how this AI intelligence kind of monitors what we're saying, and blah blah blah. So
That
interesting
sounds like
stuff.
yeah, it sounds like something your dad would say, or something like, "Yeah, you can't go 10 minutes without swearing."
YouTube is our
That's something my
unfortunate
father
father.
would say. Yeah, so we appreciate it, guys. We appreciate the audience. We appreciate that we get to interact with all you people. And yeah, hi to everybody. Kim had a run. Bye, Kim. I hope you have a great day and good luck with all the things
So
you have
she's
going on.
off
And
to acting. Yeah.
yeah, go after it. And let us know what you think of The Florist when you get a chance to watch it. Paul Ionati, what's up, Paul? My paisan there. Nice Italian, nice strong Italian last name. Respect, guys, for being here every week. Well, thanks, man. We appreciate it. And like I said, I've said this on the show before, but Mike's one of my best friends, and he's in Florida. I'm in Rhode Island. We don't get to hang out, so this is our little bit. This is our Tommy Mikey time. Um, so yeah, guys, The Florist. A couple of other things that I just wanted to chat about. Overall, this cast was kind of put together in such a way that we were thinking about the future. There's very much, like, we have a whole arc planned for this story, and I'm so excited for it. There's so many different ways that we can go with this story. Where, like, I love the idea that each week the father and son assassin squad are handed a new case that they have to, track down a new mark, find out their weaknesses, and take them out. And what's nice about that is, from a casting standpoint, every week we'll get a new actor in there to do their thing. And there's a great line that Fred says, and this is actually a line, believe it or not. I'm gonna tell you a little story. I've done a lot of work I've made a couple of movies about organized crime, and one of the things that I would do, without naming names, that's for damn sure, is I've interviewed a lot of people that were involved in organized crime and legitimate, as they say, real deal guys. We're talking about, you know, people who have probably killed for money, much like our characters in this particular show. And I remember hearing something from one of them that just scared the shit out of me, but also fascinated me at the same time. And the guy just said very calmly, he just said, "Hey, look, taking someone out, it's easy." He's like, "You could have all the security in the world. You could have a gun. You could be carrying a gun all the time. You could have a bodyguard. But there's going to be that one time when you're just coming home and you got your groceries in the trunk and you open up the trunk to take your groceries out and you lean down, you're about to walk in the garage and boom, somebody could just hit you in the head with a baseball bat and that'd be it." And I remember just hearing that and being like, whoa, like this guy's not even talking about using a gun. He's just like, "I'm just going to walk up to you with a bat. I'm going to wait for you to be getting your groceries out of the fucking car and I'm going to bludgeon you to death when you're not expecting it." And that got my gears turning about how these hitmen think. And there's a great line. It's my favorite line in The Florist. And Fred says it so well. He goes, "Every day, each man has 10 seconds of vulnerability. That's where we make our living, in those 10 seconds." And it's kind of like, the idea is, if you were to study someone's behavioral patterns long enough, and if you were to track them like a hunter and follow them long enough and study their every move, you'd be able to know, like, oh, right around Tuesdays, every Tuesday around 11 o'clock, Tommy DiNucci's doing his And Action podcast. He's in the porch right there. If I sit right over by his house with a high-power rifle every Tuesday at 11, I could put a bullet in his head. You wouldn't even fucking see it coming. Don't get any ideas out there.
Don't give him a handbook, buddy. We might have our.
That's if you had to take me out. I mean, I'm in a porch. It's exposed. You could easily get me.
Jeez.
So my point is that some of the dialogue in The Florist, as campy and as fun and as lighthearted as it is, that shit comes from some real conversations that I've had with mafia hitmen that, are looking for that moment of vulnerability. That's what it's all about. It's be careful. Watch out. What maybe we should all pay attention to when we're most vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, and Tommy, it's a good point. And with your characters in this piece, in a way, we're kind of rooting for guys. We're rooting for the father and son, Ethan and Ethan Jr., played by yourself, that are doing bad things to bad people. So there's kind of these levels of evil. I mean, killing people is not a good thing to do. The people that these guys are killing are really horrible people. So in a sense, we as the audience are cheering for killers. So we're kind of put in a position where the audience is being asked, do you cheer for people to get killed who deserve it, basically, or who we think deserve it? And now, here's a flaw in that might be, well, there's no due process. These people that are getting whacked are not having the chance to tell their side of the story. But for the sakes of creativity here, it's kind of determined that these people are guilty of some pretty nasty crimes against humanity, and the world would be better off without them. But that, once again, buddy, challenges some of the audience to say, can I put myself into the foot of an avenger, a vigilante? And I mean, things like Death Wish and Rambo, vigilante movies, vigilante movies or vigilante stories have created some pretty iconic characters, like the Walking Tall, and stuff like that. So I think you and Fred, Ethan and Ethan Jr. are kind of in that situation where you might be asking the audience, do you support the vigilantes if what they're doing is for the betterment of society?
Yeah, and I think that it's also, one of the aspects of the show is that both Fred's character and eventually my character, they do their own due process, in the sense, like they are the judge and the jury, in the sense that I don't think that these characters, and this is, a much different discussion for like the writing room, but I don't think in The Florist, I don't think Ethan, my dad's character, would even think about killing someone unless he did his own homework on them, scouted them out, staked them out, saw with his own two eyes. Like in episode 1 in the pilot, we see the bad guy administering drugs to this young girl and like filming her from the window. So we could assume, although maybe we don't see it, the subtext could be assumed that, well, Fred's character probably went and saw this with his own two eyes, like the night before or a few nights before. They know these guys are bad. So you're right. That is, that's obviously why, people who are against the death penalty, a lot of times, they're like, well, I'm against it, not so much for the morality of it, just because, like, what if the court was wrong? You know what I mean? And that has legitimately happened many times. But in this case, I'm pretty sure Big Ethan ain't going to pull that trigger unless he's damn well sure that these are bad, bad people. We're talking rapists, child molesters, animal abusers. He hates animal abusers. So yeah, it's definitely. And here's the other thing, in all seriousness, part of the creative process behind the show was, I've heard some crazy things. I don't want to make this political or make this because I don't have enough facts. I really don't. But sometimes I watch a lot of true crime, and I've heard a lot of times, you'll see some awful thing happen, like whether it's a child molester or a rapist or even sometimes a murderer who's, caught red-handed. And you hear the sentence and it's like, oh, they got 19 years and served 11?
Right.
Or the child molester that only did 5 years and then got out. And you say to yourself, fuck that. Like, these people, like, we don't really need them around, as far as I'm concerned. So it's like, that's where the Ethans, both Big Ethan and Little Ethan, they're kind of the guys who are like, hey man, yeah, this person only got what, 90, they did 9 years for a murder? Like, yeah, well, we'll take care of that for you. They're kind of they definitely have a little bit of morality to weigh, but they do what they feel is right, and at a high price so that they can make a little extra coin too.
Yeah, I see a lot of those cases on YouTube of like kids, like teenagers, older teenagers especially, that commit crimes. And when they get charged as an adult, sometimes they even, it seems to me, get off a little bit easy. They might get 20 years, but they ended somebody's life. And this 15 or 16-year-old, if they threw a rock off a bridge or if they purposely killed someone, they'll get 20 years. I'm like, well, they'll be 36 when they get out of prison. Is that fair to the family and the person who got murdered at age whatever? Who knows,
Yeah, and you start doing the math and you're like, even sometimes older, like, oh, that person's going to be, they do a murder at, say, 20, and then they do a 35-year sentence. And then you say to yourself, oh, shit, well, at 55 years old, they're going to come out of jail and still have the tendencies to maybe murder. And guess what? At 55, you're more than capable of doing so. So it's just, let's just hope that these people are actually being rehabilitated in jail. Personally, my opinion, I don't think anyone's really getting rehabilitated in there. I think if anything, you're probably getting a little tougher, a little edgier. That's a whole conversation for another podcast. We ain't talking about that today. But these are all, important things to talk about with the Florist, because you're right, Mike. These guys are kind of taking life and taking matters into their own hands and providing their own unique brand of justice. Let's see what some of the folks here say before we wrap this thing up. Paul Iannotti says, Louisville Slugger to the head. That is going to end your night for sure. Ariana says, that's why I never keep a routine. Keep them on their toes. That's right. You don't want to be tracked down. I would be so easy to murder. I am so routine oriented that if anyone ever had a hit on me, it would be like, Tommy DeNucci, I know where he never leaves his house. He's very easy to kill. Eric Johnson, what's up, Eric? Eric says, ripped from the headlines has done great business. It's funny you say that. That's like, my mom and dad have a thing with that. My mom and dad love certain phrases, and they'll just like repeat them to each other and laugh. And like one of those phrases, they'll be like watching one of those shows, and he'll be like, my dad will be like, Marie, ripped from the headlines. Ripped from the headlines. He fucking loves that shit for some reason. But yes, rip from the headlines.
Is that a name of a podcast? Is that a crime podcast called Rip from the Headlines?
No. Rip from the headlines is just a famous phrase that came from television, like shows like like NYPD Blue, or like shows like all those, New York Undercover. They'll take something that happened in real life and they'll change the characters' names and they'll formulate an episode. So it's like a real case that happened, and then you see this TV show's version, and then and the promo, they'll be like, this week ripped from the headlines,
Right,
and
right,
it'll
right.
So it's kind of it's a fun way to market your shit. Or sometimes parents hire good lawyers and they don't go to jail. Yeah, that's a good case too. I mean, somebody just passed away that is also a breakfast juice of some kind. Mr. O.J. Simpson, I'm pretty sure had a good
Oh,
lawyer.
yeah.
And
He had
again,
several.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there that night, but he probably was responsible for those murders, and he got off. So yeah, I mean, hey, the florist would be the guy to call if you wanted to take out something like that.
Here's a little
Uh,
statistic. Here's a little statistic, Tommy.
but
O.J. Simpson's Bronco chase took place the day before the 1994 King of the Ring tournament that Owen Hart won. So it kind of
how
gives you
about
some
that?
perspective on how time works. Because I mean,
Yeah,
Owen, who's been deceased for 25 years, won one of his biggest wrestling shows ever. 24 hours after the OJ chase. So it kind of like time is which one do
so
you
many
remember more
connections.
clearly? Yeah.
There's so many connections there.
Yeah.
All right, let's Eric Johnson, just to give us a little bit of yeah, he confirms Law and Order. That's what it was. Law and Order was the show that would often rip shit from the headlines. He also says, and I feel that the Bronco chase was happening during the NBA Finals.
It
That
was.
sounds
It's accurate.
sounds like it's accurate. Eric's on his game today. All right, guys, we're gonna be wrapping this thing up again. Big shout out to everybody who took a little time, took $3, took that coffee money for the day, and invested it into the florist. We really hope you enjoyed it. We had so much fun making it. We hope you had a fun time watching it. And like I said, I was dead serious. If anybody has any ideas how to help us better promote the show, how to get it out there, how to get more eyes on it, how to help educate people on what Patreon is, please let us know. We would love for you to promote it, help us out, drop something down on your story. If you're into YouTube, I am out there on YouTube. You can find me. That's at Tom DiNucci Film. I'm like this close to 3,000 subscribers. Would love to get a couple more clicks. So subscribe. That's where this show is happening. This show is broadcasted from my YouTube channel every Tuesday. And hit that notifications bell, hit the subscribe button, and tell your friends about the florist. Mike, do you have anything to add before we call it a day?
No, I think it's you said it pretty well, Tommy. You know, and MikeMessier.com. If you scroll to the bottom, I have all my social media stuff. You know, Twitter and Instagram, and I'm still kind of a Facebook guy, Tommy. Although that's not many people. I mean, I guess that's not the cool thing, but I still like Facebook. And like I said, I will be promoting my book, the novel "A Distance from Avalon: When the Dying of the Dead Reunite," because the book teaser / proof of concept video, Many Keys, the Heartbreak Monologue, which we've featured on a previous episode of An Action, will be playing Thursday in Fort Myers at the Fort Myers Film Festival. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good luck,
And
brother. And, kick some ass over there in Fort Myers. And
thanks.
everybody else, we really appreciate you joining in with us. I'm becoming out of focus, which means it's time to go. They're playing the music. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next week on And Action.